You ever hear a story about a filmmaker that makes you go, okay, yeah, this person absolutely needed therapy, not a movie deal? Because that's the exact emotional tax bracket Emerald Fennell was in when she decided to make Wuthering Heights. And I know every director says they're passionate, but this woman? She went full Victorian ghost wife energy on this thing. She didn't adapt Wuthering Heights. Bro, she spiritually married it, emotionally keyed its car, and then blamed it for not texting her back. I'm not kidding. She straight up said making this movie was masochistic. Like, she used that word publicly in interviews with her whole chest. Most people try to hide their unhinged era. And that was just the beginning, because the way she talked about this book, bro, the girl was in a situationship with a novel. A novel! Imagine telling your friends you're in love with someone who literally doesn't exist and also died 200 years ago. Imagine doubling down on that by saying, yeah, this is emotional self-harm, but it's my emotional self-harm. That's the energy she brought to set. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking, damn, I thought I had attachment issues. This lady is doing 50 Shades of Bronte with a paperback. And okay, let me be serious for like 2 seconds. Do you know how rarely directors admit their entire creative process is basically one long mental breakdown? Never. They lie. It's their favorite thing to do besides yelling again but with feeling. But Emerald just walked into the room like, hello, my name is Emerald Fennell, and this project is my psychological self-immolation. Also, Margot Robbie is here. And the studio still gave her money. That's how you know Hollywood is sick. You tell them, this book ruined me emotionally, and they're like, ooh, Slay Queen, here's $80 million. Go traumatize the cast too. But here's where it gets spicy. When she said it was masochistic, she didn't mean like, oh, haha, this is so hard. She meant it like someone who's been listening to Lana Del Rey for 6 months straight and hasn't touched grass since 2014. She meant it like, I have willingly placed my soul inside a blender and pressed puree. She meant it like she was willingly reenacting the world's longest toxic situationship, except the other person is literally a piece of literature. You ever loathe something so much it pisses you off? That was her. Except instead of putting the book down and going outside like a normal human, she said, let me force hundreds of people and like 3 whole villages in the Yorkshire Dales to join me in this emotional hostage situation. And everyone on set was like, yeah, sure, normal day. And bro, she didn't even try to hide it. She'd show up to interviews talking about Wuthering Heights like it was her emotionally unavailable ex-boyfriend who kept ghosting her, but also somehow held the cure to her soul. She was basically saying, I know he's terrible, I know this is unhealthy, I know this hurts, but also, I physically cannot stop. And Hollywood just stared at her like, mother. But the real comedy, the irony that hits you in the forehead like a frying pan, she kept saying she loves the book and the book doesn't love her back. Girl, that is a paperback. Of course it doesn't love you back. You can't trauma bond with a novel. But then again, who am I kidding? She absolutely did. And she dragged everyone else into it like a cult leader who thinks the Kool-Aid is just vibey. Now here's the part where I knew she was gone, like spiritually on holiday, mentally in another zip code. She decided that instead of doing a safe, normal period piece, pretty dresses, sad piano, misty moors, slow motion horses, no. She went, what if I just ripped the skin off the book and served it raw? She stripped it down to its emotional skeleton. She replaced the corset drama with straight-up feral emotional warfare. It wasn't, oh, Heathcliff, my love. It was, hey, let's psychologically waterboard each other for 2 hours while the wind screams like it knows something we don't. And she thought that was romantic, because of course she did. And the cast? The cast had to deal with her being in full, possessed by the spirit of Emily Bronte mode. Imagine showing up to work and your boss is pacing around the moors like she's waiting for a ghost to text her. Imagine trying to do your job while the director is muttering about how pain is essential to beauty and love is just a prettier word for cruelty. I would have quit, personally. I would have taken one look at that and said, nope, I don't get paid enough to participate in a gothic emotional exorcism. But they didn't, because the cast was also insane. Margot Robbie probably read the script like, ooh, it's messy drama and emotional ruin. Count me in. And Jacob Elordi, that man only chooses roles where he looks like he needs either a hug or a priest. Perfect match. Now let's talk about the fact that the entire crew basically walked into Emerald's unhinged Pinterest board and had to build it in real life. These people didn't sign up to make a movie, they signed up for a group therapy session held in a haunted bog. And Emerald's direction wasn't, could you stand a little left? It was, imagine the love of your life is stabbing your soul with a broken icicle, but you like it. That's not directing, that's emotional waterboarding with a camera. And don't even get me started on how she handled the tone, because she didn't want the dignified, Austen-esque, Regency Corps TikTok version of Wuthering Heights. No, she wanted the unwashed, feral, trauma-bonded, emotionally radioactive version, the kind where everybody is miserable and horny and screaming into the void. And the void is screaming back because it also has feelings about Heathcliff and Kathy. And while this was happening, Emerald was probably sitting in her director's chair like a Victorian widow mourning her eighth husband, whispering, "Yes, more pain." Like, girl, blink twice if you need help. Blink once if you are the ghost. But here's the absolute chef's kiss of chaos. The more she talked, the more it became obvious she didn't just love the book, she identified with it. Like this wasn't a project, it wasn't even an obsession, it was a full-blown spiritual possession. And she admitted it. Publicly, multiple times. Imagine directing your movie and telling the world, yeah, so this is basically just me working through my emotional trauma in front of a camera. Anyway, enjoy the popcorn. It's bold, it's insane, I respect it, but I also need her to drink a Gatorade and take a nap. And then there's the way the studio reacted. They didn't go, maybe we shouldn't give millions to the woman who sounds one emotional threat away from using this movie to summon a Victorian poltergeist. They said, this is art. And honestly, they were right, because this kind of insane passion is why the movie exists at all. But make no mistake, this wasn't filmmaking. This was Emerald Fennell crawling into the ribcage of a 19th century novel and deciding to live there rent-free like some kind of artistic raccoon. And the more she talked about this masochistic love for the book, the more you realized she was basically Heathcliff with a film budget. Bro, she was the real main character. Wuthering Heights didn't need an adaptation. It needed a therapist, and instead, it got Emerald Fennell with a camera and a dream and zero emotional breaks. And at the end of the day, that's why this story is insane enough to go viral. Because it's not about the actors, it's not about the production, it's not even about the book. It's about one woman declaring war on her own feelings through a multi-million-dollar movie and saying, if I'm going down, the entire crew is going with me. That's art. That's madness. That's Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights.